Hey friends, welcome to Crypto Theology. I'm Michael Patton, and we're going to talk about weird things, all weird things, strange and unexplained from a theological standpoint. So get ready. This is a lot of fun. That's where I'll put the here right now. You got the cool logo and music.
Cool.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you still hear me? Hola, hola, hola. Can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me. You're not responding to me anyway.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You there?
Yeah.
Of course. Everything was working perfect.
Yeah, it's showing that.
Okay. How about now?
I can hear you fine. But
Yeah,
it
I know.
okay.
Crap. All right, talk now. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you fine. It seems like you can't hear me.
Not hooked up to the other things. Technical difficulties, folks. We'll get this worked out in just a minute. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2.
Okay, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me or not though.
Hear you.
I seem to have a delay.
Can't hear you at either place anymore. We did have everything worked out. I'm telling you.
Let me see. I can see your captions. I don't know if I'm coming through or not.
This.
That's where.
And I'll turn it back on in just a second, and it should reconnect.
I think I'm coming through, Michael, because my text is showing up on your stream.
I know you're coming through. Depends on where I try to get you at, and now I get you here, so I think we're good. Okay.
All right, cool.
Ooh, I'm glad I put these on because you're a little bit loud. And are those your dogs?
Nah, they're somebody's dogs. They're not mine.
Okay. All right. We're going. You ready?
Okay. Yes, sir.
All right. I already did that introduction, so I'll cut it and we'll start right now. All right. We're going to be talking about sleep paralysis today. Hey, Ed, how you doing?
I am doing good.
All right.
And just quick note for your Facebook audience. We are doing sleep paralysis, not hiddenness of God.
What did I put? Hiddenness of? I didn't put hiddenness of God, did I?
That's what it shows. It's still showing.
Oh, come on. Did I really?
Yeah.
Man, that's too bad.
But at least there's no
hiddenness of God is not a weird subject, so that's not a crypto subject. Sleep paralysis barely is, but it is.
Well,
When you talk about sleep paralysis with me, though.
Yeah, I would say with most people it is, because it's not the sleep paralysis itself. It's what happens, what people experience.
What you feel like's happening. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's definitely a weird topic, I think.
It is. Let's see here. I've got sleep paralysis pulled up here from WebMD. I'm going to read what it is. All right, Ed?
Okay, sounds good.
It says sleep paralysis is a feeling of being conscious but unable to move. It occurs when a person passes between stages of wakefulness and sleep. During these transitions, you may be able to move or speak for a few seconds for up to a minute. Some people may also feel pressure on their chest and a sense of choking. Sleep paralysis may accompany other sleep disorders like narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is an overpowering need to sleep caused by a problem with the brain's inability to regulate. Now, one thing I know, Ed, is I've looked it up again because, as you know, I've been through sleep paralysis, so I'm going to talk about my story. But It's just right in between. You've got your REM sleep, and then you got whatever 2 stages come before REM, and then right in between REM sleep and the stage before, what happens is you have a certain part of your brain that puts your body to rest so that it can reactivate your thoughts and your thinking. And as your thinking is reactivated, it has to paralyze your body so that you don't get up and do the things in the dream. You get it?
Yeah. It's almost like what I've seen or read is that it's your brain is preparing for your body to shut down so it doesn't do anything crazy during REM sleep and possibly hurt yourself.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's fascinating the way you work. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you start to wake up and you wake your brain up, but your body stays paralyzed. And so you go into this panic oftentimes.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you about my story. I'm going to tell you, Ed, this is the first time you've heard it. I'm going to tell everybody out there because my story's fun. It really is. It's a great story.
Cool.
And I'm a great storyteller. That's the best part about it.
Yeah, there you go.
So anyway, okay. Starting around 6, 7 years old. That's where I remember it first. I'm going to tell you first about my night terrors because they do have something to do with this because I just had so much sleep problems growing up. And this has nothing to do with my sleep apnea that I just had because during the entire time I had sleep apnea for the last 10 years. It's been 1 year since I had it and I got my machine. But for those 10 years, I never had any sleep paralysis, never had any of these types of things. So it's completely unconnected, at least in my case.
It's almost opposite because you were sleepwalking then, and in sleep paralysis you can't move, right?
Yeah, so, I just couldn't sleep at all. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I was seeing visions, all kinds of stuff. That's a crypto deal in and of itself, the way that I was sleeping. But this started when I was around 8 or 9 years old, and I would wake up. This is the hardest thing of the entire testimony I'm giving to explain because I've never really known how to explain it to anybody. Like people ask me what's happening. And I know people have night terrors before, but I've never heard night terrors like mine because I would get up and I would run around the house. Then just picture me 6 years old and I am screaming, crying, inconsolable. And I'm in my, I know I'm awake. This isn't something that they have to tell me the next day. There is something going on in this world in my mind that is so horrific that there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. There's nothing anybody can do to console me. So I'd run around screaming. And best I can say is something like, I don't know, back in our day, or back at least in my day, you're about the same as my day. You're a little bit before, but we had the nuclear war all the time, and that fear. And I was scared to death of nuclear war in the 70s and the 80s. I just really was horrible. We all were. But it was kind of like that the nuclear, that we had released our nuclear arsenal and it's over. That was kind of the feeling if you could go there. But it's a little bit more than that because it's like it's going to last for eternity. There's nothing we can do to stop it. And basically, in the end, I'm panicking because my family is done for. Well, it's kind of another way to put it from a Christian standpoint is you come and find out your parents are in hell, and you're just, you're a little kid and you recognize that. And, you just freak out and go crazy. So that's kind of the way that I can describe it. Whenever I went through depression in 2010, the thoughts that I had at that point, or the doubt, remember whenever I went through the doubt time, like for a few weeks and I was just in a panic? That was the closest I've ever come to feeling that way. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel the way I did whenever I was a little kid. Everything is worthless. Nothing's going to work out. It's total black hole of all thoughts and hopes. And you're just complete void. And everything we thought was real is not real. That's kind of the idea.
Right.
So I would get up and I would do that. And this was, I did it probably 10, 20 times growing up. My dad was the only one. It's kind of funny. My dad, who wouldn't do anything in the world for me from a relationship standpoint. My mom couldn't calm me down, but my dad could. And I think he took a little bit of pride in being able to do that. That was kind of his fatherly thing. See,
his fatherly strength. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what he would do every time was the same. He'd say, "Come on, Mac." That's what he'd call me. And he'd pull me over and I'm like, no, just listen, don't touch me, that kind of thing. And he pulls me over and he says, "Let's get a drink of water." And he'd be very calm. And his calmness, I would kind of adjust to. And so he'd give me a drink of water, and then we'd go for a walk outside, and it always worked.
Wow.
So that started my sleep problems. Now these are connected, I think, very much because at the same age as whenever I started having sleep paralysis. And sleep paralysis for me was laying on my back, waking up, my eyes waking up. I remember when I first did it, I'm like, I'm awake. I know I'm awake. I swear I'm awake, and I'm looking at my clock I'm looking across around in my room, and I'm like, why can't I move? Why can't I move? And you go into a normal panic.
Sure.
That's kind of the normal sleep paralysis that you probably have, and you've got a story, or you've got a couple of stories too.
Yeah.
But I think that's a base level sleep paralysis, and that's what this kind of is talking about. Whenever it's very chemical and it's easy to explain because you're just there and you're stuck.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No. I think, it's interesting because there are two different, from the spiritual side. So both sides, whether it's the medical side or the spiritual side, like it's from demons or it's from some unholy origin.
Yeah.
Both sides say it runs in families.
Yeah.
Right? Which makes sense because if it's hereditary, then it comes through your genes, right? Possibly. If it's spiritual, they say somebody invited it in. You being in Oklahoma seems like with all the the Native American and different things in the background. And if I remember, you said aren't you part?
Yeah, my grandma was
part Cherokee.
My grandma was half Cherokee, and it did ran on my family, and it ran on my mom's side. So you're right. It's like, okay, it's either hereditary from a clinical standpoint, from a science standpoint, or it's hereditary from kind of this mythology curse standpoint. Right. So you can go either way with that one.
Yeah. So it's just I find that interesting that either way you can explain how it's passed on through a family.
So my mother had it, and my dad didn't. I had it, and now one of my daughters has it, and my son just started having it.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, the nice thing about my son is he hasn't had any of the terrible things. My daughter, who I asked her, I said, hey, you want to come on and tell your testimony? And she was like, yeah, I do, but, I got to work. And so, but hers is even worse than mine.
So you got stuck with me
as
instead.
bad. So. Yeah. No. It was going to be you no matter what.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
It's crypto theology with Michael and Ed. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I just find the thing fascinating. I find one thing, there's a lot of things you said about your story that I think are interesting, the nuclear war thing, because that leads to more of like because there's a physical, right? There's one guy, neuroscientist, he's trying to explain it from a physical, chemical, things like that. Then there's a psychological thing, like you were afraid back then during the Cold War days. Nuclear war did seem like it could be a reality, and that's what it was. So is it psychological? Is it your greatest fear at that moment?
Well, it was. Here's the deal. It was at that moment whenever it was base level, but it didn't take long at all for me to start having this kind of intruder. You hear about the intruder, and sometimes it's one intruder, sometimes it's two. For my daughter, it's two, and this intruder for me was the same every time. I had my room that was facing a big window to my front yard, and then right to the right of it was one of those Jack and Jill bathrooms that had a sliding door. So the sliding door was always open, or at least partially open, and there'd be a completely black figure about 7 foot tall every time after the first time. And he would begin by peeking his head out at me. It's a black figure. I know he was looking at me. I couldn't see his eyes. There were no like red eyes or anything like that. It was just this black figure that would peek around, and this sudden kind of feeling of I don't know. It's the easiest way for me to put it is a demonic presence.
Right.
Just something bad. He's not a good guy. He's not just a robber. He's not just somebody that's going to come in and kill me. This is a demonic presence that is looking at me, and he wants some type of rise out of me. And he would get it, right? Because it would just be, the second I'd see his face, it would just be, oh my God, and you're struggling, and the problem is that if I acted calm, he would come faster and faster. Wow. So the more calm I was, if I said, just be calm, then he'd just, fly at me super fast.
Wow.
And so I'd have to act scared. I'd have to be scared, let it show, and he'd back up. And so every time it would just
mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Wow. That's weird because I've only ever had like I mentioned once or twice. I know of once. I think it probably happened twice, but it was only like 5 seconds. And
Yeah.
I think I was coming out of a dream where I was, and that's why I'm not even sure if it's real because it may have been a dream where we'd been robbed at one point and like by we had 7 masked guys come in, probably a gang, right? Came in and robbed our family, held us all at gunpoint for like an hour and a half while they stole everything.
Wow.
And then it was sometime after that, not right after, but so I was having a dream, I think, and it feels
Was
like
that
I
in
was
Jersey? Was that in Jersey?
no, that was here back.
Okay.
It was like 8 years ago now, 9
Okay.
years ago, I
Dang.
think, something like that. Yeah, so it was quite a while ago. But so that in itself, obviously, scary. But then the only experience I had only lasted like 5 seconds. It was like, and it was, I feel like I was having a dream about somebody trying to attack us or rob us,
Yeah.
and I couldn't move.
Yeah.
But then I woke up, so it was only a few seconds long. That's
Yeah.
why I don't know if the paralysis was part of the dream or not. Because
Yeah.
as soon as I could move, that whole thing went away. So.
Well, the problem is whenever they talk about it from, I don't know if you, whenever you look at these things from a scientific standpoint, but we listened to the same thing. I think you said you listened to that, right? That I sent to you. The problem is that they do it, they induce it in rats. And it's always kind of a little bit weird to say, are you really sure you're inducing the exact same thing,
Right, yeah, because you don't lay them on the couch and ask them to explain what happened to them.
Yeah, rats are a little bit different than us psychologically and everything else.
Yeah, somebody was stealing my cheese and I couldn't get to it to protect it, So that is kind of it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But even that though, the idea that you can induce it, right? Because there's this lady called Vicki Joy Anderson, I think it is, and she wrote a book about this. It's called They Only Come Out at Night or something.
Oh man, that sounds scary.
Yeah, and she gets but she's into all kinds of the occult. Like she's a Christian, but she's trying to help people with occult issues, right? Whether it's possessions and things like that.
Yeah.
But she talks about even the possibility that like the government, right? The black ops, they can they can do this to people, right?
Yeah.
They can. So through different technologies, I'm not trying to be a giant conspiracy thing. I'm just saying that.
Oh no!
Since you mentioned that they can induce it in rats, they can induce it in humans.
Oh yeah.
But is it the same thing or not? Who would volunteer for that? First of all, that would be crazy to volunteer. No. Yeah, let me have night terrors.
Well, here's what happened whenever I was a kid. We had my grandma, or not my grandma, my aunt. She was, very Christian. My mom was very Christian. Mm-hmm. And they came in and my mom was concerned about it, would tell them about it. Here I am 8 to 12 years old having all these things. Mm-hmm. And so they came in and blessed the house and they were really scared and did a little bit of research on the house. Found out that in my room, now this makes it a lot worse. Found out in my room, the kid that lived there, we moved there in 1979. Up until 1979, and I didn't have it until I moved into that room. But the kid that lived there, because whenever I came in there, it was monster wallpaper, bunch of monsters. It had gravestones everywhere. I mean, who has that as wallpaper? Right. Gravestones, R.I.P. Nice. So they painted over it. She thought about, after she painted over it and it still didn't work, coming and tearing it all down. But then they found out this kid, I don't know how they found this out. This is all I know is they told me this, that this kid used to perform some type of ritual in the room, kind of a kid ritual or something, and it was, he was known for it in the neighborhood as the weird kid. But I mean, I'm not saying he was a Satanist or a wizard or whatever.
Right.
He did something sounds like weird. Yeah. He did something weird in that room. And so they came over and blessed it and tried to get it stopped. Didn't even come close to getting it stopped. Right. Just like all blessings, whenever you hear about these things, if you don't correct the real problem, the blessing may work for a day or two, but then it comes back even worse.
Right.
Just like Christ said,
I was just going to say that. Yep. Yeah. Yes. Returns with 7, right?
Yeah.
So
7 more evil.
Right. Right. Because they find the house empty. Because if you don't populate the vacuum with the Holy Spirit, it's empty. But that's interesting to me too, is because we talk so much, and I don't believe this anymore. That with demonic possession, okay, I can believe that the Christians can't be possessed by a demon.
Can be possessed?
No,
can or can't?
Well, no, I'm still with the like they cannot,
Okay.
but I'm not as strong as I used to be.
Yeah.
Because things like these types of things, right? You can still be terrorized. You can, like, if you remember the movie Luther,
Yeah.
when he's getting like attacked by demons, right?
Yeah.
I believe we can be oppressed more
That's a
than
good movie.
more
The
than possessed.
1950s version or the
No,
2000?
the 2000 version is the
Okay.
one I saw. I didn't see the 1950s
It's
version.
just as good. It really is.
Yeah, yeah, but he was tormented,
Yeah.
right? So I believe more Christians can be oppressed and attacked, but not possessed, if that makes sense.
Well, it's hard because it's just a degree, right? At some
Yep.
point. And, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess there may be a point where they actually do take up residence because I know the Bible doesn't have anything about actually talking about demon possession, but it's demonization.
Mm-hmm.
And so that becomes a degree. But at the same
Right.
time, whenever Christ would cast them out, it was the Greek word ekbalo, to throw out.
Right.
So they would throw them out of something. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to me. But I don't know. Well, we'll talk about that one. That'll be a good one whenever we get to that.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring it up is because experientially, like the what you deal with this sleep paralysis and the terrifying evil, right? An evil presence. That's not possession, obviously, but it is occupying your mind. It's in your thoughts, and it's
Yeah.
scaring you, and it's some sort of oppression. Whether it's unless it's completely physical, and
It's such a I mean, here's the deal. I mean, I hear my daughter and she has it, and it just breaks my heart because I'm like, it does make me angry. It does make me scared. It does make me frustrated that you can be in such a situation and be that young and have anything like that happen.
Right.
That is automatically for most people, and it is. You go all the way back to the Middle Ages, go further down, you can go into other cultures, and it has always been attributed to some type of demonic, evil, spiritual force that's out there, whatever culture you're in.
Right.
The incubus and the succubus, and there were times, that's where people say, that they will have sex with demons and stuff like that. I mean, I never did that. That would have been better than what I got, but
right, especially for you, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, but now speaking of that stuff, right now, what about? I guess because you have the experience, right, which is going to make it even. You're going to care even more about how your daughter feels and how your son that they're experiencing this because you can totally relate to it. I can only partially relate. Like I've never experienced that kind of terror, right? Like I said, I just felt like I couldn't move, and I was trying to get away, and I couldn't move for a couple seconds. But for you, you have experienced it, and like it sounds like, I mean, not all the time, but many times. It sounds like you've experienced this. It's not like one or two things, right?
Yeah, it actually, I haven't had it in, let's see here, since 2007. That was the last time in Frisco, whenever I was in Texas. But it's weird. That was, I mean, I was what, 34, 35 at that time, so didn't stop until then.
Yeah. But so there's two other things for me that are interesting based on what you just said about the ancient people and like how far back this goes, right?
Yeah.
Is what about things like alien abductions? Could alien abductions be sleep paralysis where the people feel like?
Listen to this, Ed. Listen to this. I don't know if you've seen this one or heard about this one, but 3 days ago, I heard a story about a guy who, and I wasn't preparing for this at all. This just came up. And it was the story about a guy who was having sleep paralysis, and there were two figures, and these figures would always take him, and he'd feel himself being pulled off the bed. And it would happen the same time, it was very scheduled out for him. And then he said one day, and he did have all these memories of being abducted and whatever they do, experimented on. So he's one of the abductor stories, and he's never known whether it was really true. But one day he fell asleep early on the night that they normally do it. He fell asleep early on the couch and then got up to go to his room, and he said he actually was wide awake, and saw the two figures. That's freaky right there. Going into his room, and then they went in there and then left. And that's what he said. So he's like, man, what is going on with that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. We just got a comment here from Lisa. I don't know if you want to read that out or put it on the screen.
I had the presence that would come into my room when I was young adult. I'd wake up already praying and my bed would be shaking. I wasn't shaking. The presence actually was shaking my bed.
Holy
It's
crap.
horrible, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
that is just a that is worse than any nightmare you can think of because you're
Yeah.
stuck and you're awake and it's still happening.
Now, see, but like, if you take what Lisa just said, though, right? So if she's literally saying, she says, I wasn't shaking, the presence was shaking my bed. Now, how is that psychological? How is that neurological?
Yeah,
Right?
I don't know.
So, like, that's why the whole topic is, for me, is it is fascinating because it's one theory is that it is neurological or some sort of chemical or physical condition, but then the spirits take advantage of that. Like, they have knowledge of that,
Yeah, yeah.
and they take advantage of your weakness, of your disability at that point to terrorize you.
Well, I mean,
For
here's the point. Both, I mean, we're on the show because we do believe in the spiritual world, and we do believe
right,
that there are connections with a lot of this stuff that goes on, whether it be the aliens or sleep paralysis or Bigfoot, anything. We
mm-hmm,
look at it, we say, hey, let's keep our mind open because we do live in a spiritual world. There are other things going on. So I think you're right. That kind of at the base level, it doesn't seem like there's anything nefarious going on from a spiritual standpoint. But
right,
my next level was even worse. No, it wasn't
okay,
really actually even worse, but it's weirder. Okay. And it's probably
okay,
something that we've heard before, but just in a different context.
mm-hmm,
Now, I was 21 years old. And I remember I was living a terrible life. I was not a good person. I was
mm-hmm,
out partying all the time, sleeping around. And I hated myself because at the same time, I was really trying to be a better Christian. And I just fell over and over.
mm-hmm,
And I started at my apartment. This was my first apartment that I lived at alone. I started reading Mere Christianity, first time I had ever read it.
okay,
And I'd finished reading Mere Christianity, and it was very impactful for me. I was like, man, I am changing now. This is it.
mm-hmm, right,
This was a final straw. It wasn't, but that's what I thought. And so as I'm laying there at night, I go into sleep paralysis. But there was one time whenever I was a kid where I had sleep paralysis, or two times where I had it, and I was just laying there, and I freeze, and I'm on my stomach, and I just hear, Michael, just like that,
mm,
right? And so then you're just like, oh my gosh, something is talking to me. This black
right,
thing never talked to me. Now it's some evil thing just sitting right next to me, staring at me, and I can't move my head around to see who it is.
mm,
So that happened one time, and I kind of felt like a presence in the room. It actually wasn't as scary as the black figure. The black figure
right,
was by far the scariest. I was at an age where I'd be the most scared. But this is whenever I was 21, sitting in my apartment. Now listen to this. You're just gonna have to hang with me and just
mm-hmm,
imagine that you go through this. I don't know what it was. I really don't. I'm not assuming whenever I say this
right,
stuff, and I don't want to overly qualify it because it could be something like this.
mm-hmm,
So you have me going into sleep paralysis, and then suddenly, not a black figure, not anything that I'd seen before, but lots of voices whispering, right? Just tons and tons of voices. And there's this sensation of evil in the room. Again, some type of evil, but it was just going up and down all over my body, not in a sexual
wow,
way, but in a
right,
probing way. Like it was just probing
mm,
who I was, what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were. And here's the funny part, right? So it was an evil presence. They were probing me. And of course, like I said, I'd read Mere Christianity. I'm trying to change. And so
mm-hmm,
in my mind, I'm like, these are demons checking me out to see if I
right,
really changed. And I'm like, take that, sucker. I really did this time.
right,
That's what's going through my mind. And
mm-hmm,
so they're going up and down, testing me, tempting me with all kinds of things, just kind of in the blink of an eye, just figuring out who I am. And so, a bunch of demons, bunch of evil. And then all of a sudden, the whole room just got super dark. I know this
right,
this sounds really weird because we already had the darkness,
yep,
but I
right,
mean, it was just super dark. They shut up, and I don't know what to say. It was just an overwhelming, worse than ever sense of evil that came towards me and looked at me and then figured me out and basically said this. I'll go ahead and tell you. It's kind of
yep,
funny, but they were testing me with everything.
mm-hmm,
And basically they looked in my mind and was like, you got this guy with sex. We'll always get him with sex. And then he
mm-hmm,
left.
Wow. Nice.
I mean, it was just in and out, and then they all left, and I was like, "Hey, man, come back! You're not going to get me. I'm better than that." You know,
Right.
it's kind of one of those
Absolutely.
things. But I mean, at
Well,
the time, I didn't necessarily say, "Okay, this is demons and Satan," but a part of me did, and I thought this was either demons, and then kind of their head, maybe a
mhm.
fallen angel or whatever it is,
Right. Azazel.
coming in
Yeah.
and
Let's
checking you
play
out.
Azazel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they called them to come, and he comes through a portal, and it did feel like there was a portal in my room. I didn't
Mhm.
even know anything about portals, never had
Right.
heard of portals, but it was like they were coming in through something, and then they all left at once through something,
Yeah.
and they never came back, at least.
Right.
So I tricked them to thinking I could be overcome, and they're wrong.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah, but were you? I mean, that's the hardest part for me is how. Why does everything seem to be spiritual related?
Yeah,
Is it just because we're thinking spiritually
yeah,
that we have a spiritual mindset, and so the way that we lean, because it is based on cultures. The type of terrors is
yeah,
based on
yeah.
culture. But wouldn't a demon take whatever you're most scared of and use it? If you're most scared of demons, wouldn't they present as that? If you're aliens, if it's the chupacabra, right? In
Well, I
cultures
guess
that
if
believe in that,
that's what their goal is, to scare you. I mean, maybe by scaring you, they're going to make you lose faith, because by being scared, you automatically have less faith than you did before.
right?
But I guess it just depends. Are they going to come and scare you, or are they going to come try to draw you into something type
Well,
thing?
see, but I've never heard anybody say anything. Doesn't it seem like evil tries to use things that we're attracted to? Like every story, and
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I don't study this all the time, right? But I am fascinated by it. I'm fascinated to the extent that a lot of different things that are weird in the world seem interconnected.
yeah,
They seem to all have some sort of
yeah,
thing that could be spiritual, could be a lot of things. I don't see how they could be mental, but like they're not trying to influence you to do bad.
yeah.
The story's always like even with Lisa's story, right? The bed shaking. That's not influencing her. Like, oh yeah, I want to join their side. You know what
Uh-huh.
I mean? They don't seem to be. They seem to just be scaring people for maybe their own fun. I don't know what the motivation is. If it's a real being that's doing it,
Well, I mean,
or
you think about it. Whenever I'm scared at those points, I'm like, God, forgive me for being scared, type thing, because
right.
I'm not trusting in you, and I'm overwhelmed with fear because I
Mm-hmm.
think something's more powerful than you in that sense. And so,
Yeah.
I think there is a goal in scaring people. I just don't know that it's the end goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I just can't picture any other goal because they never seem to be trying to influence anybody to their side.
Yeah.
If it's spiritual, again, it could just be recessed fears that we have in our brain. I don't know. I lean.
Not in these
I
reoccurring things. You're right. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just the reoccurring things are always this kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah. I just feel like I lean towards spiritual because I believe evil exists. You believe evil exists. That there's a real presence in the world. That it's not, so I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm very open to that, and I kind of lean that way.
Well, my
Like you said.
daughter has it. My daughter has it. She has the two typical things, and they're pretty freaky, the stories that she tells me and how she's had to deal with them. But
Mhm.
she's had it even more than I did. And there's just she says there's a tall one and a short one, and the short one's actually a little bit nicer. I'm like, what does that mean? I mean,
Right. Yeah,
what
he's
are
a
they
nicer
doing?
evil being. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you always feel the same presence, the sense of presence, and she can't get it to stop. And she's still having it now. She just
Mm.
called me a couple nights ago, and it was back. And things are happening in her room, and it's always kind of with her. She's the most susceptible to that. But you're right. I mean, I look at the clinical definition for it. I accept the clinical definition,
Hmm.
but I don't accept it to the exclusion of the spiritual.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because the clinical definition can explain why you can't move.
Yeah.
It doesn't explain what you see and experience.
And it doesn't really it explains why you can't move, but not necessarily why you went into that either.
Right.
And
Right.
at that time, I mean, you may be able to say because you're excessively tired, or this is. But why doesn't it happen to everybody? I know that everybody has their own things, but we
Hmm.
also have our own spiritual problems that we're having to wrestle with. And
Right.
so, if you have these things, it's like, what is the opportunity that a demon has? If this world is filled with spirits, if
Right.
there are angels and demons and fallen angels and everything around us, if there is a battle going on, if there is
Hmm.
the forces of darkness that we're fighting, that something's going on.
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
they're using
absolutely.
something with you they're using. So
Yeah,
like, why not
right.
use those types of things?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as a reminder for anybody that's watched all of our stuff, we're saying demons, and it's evil spiritual forces. I
Yeah,
would say they're,
yeah,
they're not possessing us and jumping out when we wake up, right? Like back when we talked about the ufology stuff, we were
yeah,
trying to clearly define angels, demons, stuff like that.
yeah.
So when we say demons, we don't mean the demon that possesses. At least I would say that,
Yeah.
but an evil spiritual force.
Well, listen to this. Listen to this part of it. Whenever I was having my normal ones, where I saw the black figure come in,
Mm-hmm.
one time that wasn't the black figure, but it was a presence. And then this is the same necklace that I had. Right. This
And you're
necklace.
still wearing it. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
it is.
Okay.
I got it whenever I was. Well, golly, you know what? I got
At
this
least
whenever
you're not super.
I got this whenever I was 13 years old, so I still had one at least after 13. I didn't even realize that. With the evil intruder.
At least you're not suspicious, so that's good.
Yeah.
Or superstitious, I mean.
But listen,
Sorry.
listen. Here's what it felt like in my dream. And I don't know why you have this. It's just the first time, and there's no real reason for this to happen. I didn't think my cross protected me, right?
Right.
I've never thought that these type. Well, I guess one time I fell asleep with my Bible on my chest because I would try to do different methods to keep it.
Sure.
And I did use the Bible kind of as a,
Sure.
hey, I just fell asleep reading the Bible. Whenever I really didn't, but I thought he'd trick and he wouldn't come to me. But the cross necklace, I never really thought of as anything type of power against it. I wouldn't make sure I had it on whenever I went to sleep or anything. But I woke up and it was being pulled. Okay, in my sleep paralysis, it was being pulled, and then it started spinning like this and burning my neck.
Wow.
And it was really weird because I jumped up and I ran and told my mom after I finally got out of it. I was like, "It's trying to take my cross necklace off." And that's whenever she's like, "All right, this is demonic, and we're bringing everybody in to do their anti-demon stuff." And that's just the way my mom was. Yeah. But it is kind of weird, though. I mean, not that this it was trying to get this off because it needed this to. I mean, it needed this off to get to me. It's just it's trying to send a message or something. You know, it's something about
that's
that.
really weird.
Yeah,
it's definitely weird. I don't know. What's so weird to me, and back to the medical stuff, is there's never good experitions, or very, very rarely does anybody have a good sleep paralysis experience, right? I don't want to talk about what that would be for you, but
well, I mean, I was going to say, there are the succubus and the incubus that come in. I'm just setting that aside, and I listened to a guy that had the succubus come until he was 28 years old, and he could summon it, and he was like swore up and down that it was all correct, and it was just weird. And then one day it stopped; he couldn't summon it anymore.
Wow.
He's a Christian now, so he doesn't do that. But
yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, I don't even know where to go with that.
Well, obviously he described that as a good experience, but at the same time, that is a.
But was it paralysis or was it a out-of-body experience?
No. This wasn't. I mean, this was the same type thing because he did have paralysis, but then he said it developed into this to where the intruder was a woman, and then it turned out the woman was pretty, and then it turned out that, I mean, he was like, I was no longer stuck, and I could not see her, but we were doing everything together, and I was even, on top or on bottom type thing to get. That's as graphic as I'll get, but it's just that he believes that's the way it was, and here he is, 40 years old, telling this story. He's not weird in any other ways. It's just that this happened to him, and he knows it did, and he used to have sex with a demon. So that would. I'm not saying that's a good experience. I'm just saying that was to some people that would be a good experience, right?
Right. Well, especially if you're not a Christian, but then maybe. But I would still think that. I guess he slept a lot then, right?
Yeah,
probably.
Like I said, he said
I'm going to bed. So.
He said he could summon it at any time. I mean, maybe I'll get him on the show sometime because it is a really interesting story and it's bigger than just this. But still at the same time, it's just weird. I mean, the strange things that go on and the medical reasons that we quickly come up with to explain them. Mm-hmm. And they're never really satisfactory. They don't really work all the time,
Right. Now, I've watched a couple. There's a guy. He's. Let me see if his name doesn't really matter, but he's a neuroscientist from Harvard. and he he tries to explain it, and it's like you said, it's just not. Really isn't satisfying,
Yeah.
because it's like it may be this, right? It could be this,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what just kind of what kind of drives me crazy with this stuff, because we do it with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Anything we can't explain, science has an answer for.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's not a satisfying answer, because they can't recreate it. Okay, they can recreate sleep paralysis with some chemical or some.
But they can't
whatever.
recreate the demonic intruder.
Right. But what about the terrorist? That's the
Yeah.
part that doesn't. Even if it's both.
Yeah.
I'm with you that I accept that it's a that there's a there's a physical condition to it.
Yeah, and I think that's the base level. That's what creates the opportunity for something else, and we can't really explain that something else. And you know what, Ed? It's just like everything else. Why is it so universal? Yeah. I mean, it's just, that's the thing that really gets me about a lot of this stuff, this crypto stuff that we look at. Mm-hmm. It's not subjective towards the person, and then the person has his own story, and he has his I mean, completely different than the next person. It's all very much the same, falls within this small circle of what happens during sleep paralysis, small circle that happens during, demon possession, small circle that happens during seeing some type of crypto, and I'm like, this is how are they communicating? How are they communicating?
Yeah, all of these things. I agree, and that's kind of the stuff that I think we want to talk about, right? Is that things that you can say, Bigfoot's not real, or Dogman, or whatever it is, right? But these things are experienced all around the world.
Yeah,
different names, different languages, right? But alien abductions, demon possession. Mm-hmm. All of these things are experienced around the world, and those are the things I think are worth talking about from a at least a somewhat theological perspective, right?
The problem is, Ed, we're so westernized. The first thing we do is go to WebMD to figure out everything, and it's not that we shouldn't go there to be able to understand some things. I'm not saying that's not a gift, but at the same time, we're just in our box that we claim spirituality, we claim that things are going on around us, but in the end, we don't really
we don't live
act as it. Yeah. We don't act like it.
Right. Yeah, we don't live the way what we claim to, and I don't think we even nowadays claim as much as we used to. Not us, but as people used to, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a fair point where, you take something like ancient aliens, and I'm not trying to go on aliens. It's just the idea that they used to think these were gods. Now we know they're aliens, right? Well, how much of that is no? It was gods, right? It was. When I say gods, so please don't jump on it. All right, I'm not talking polytheism, Elohim, spiritual beings, stuff like that, right? But how much of it was? How much of it was that? And now we just got that's aliens. Oh well, aliens aren't really aliens. Aliens are the government.
As long as they can be scientifically understood. I mean, it's always something that.
As long as you can remove God and the real spiritual battle that's going on, as long as you can remove that from the discussion, we're fine with anything. Yeah. We're fine with the History Channel, and which I used to make fun of my mom and sisters for watching soap operas, right? Because they're all fake. But History Channel's men's soap opera channel.
Oh, right?
It is. You know what I mean? It is. It's just like, okay, we love scary stuff. We love weird stuff. So.
It's on the History Channel. Come on, it's right.
Yeah, come on, it's a documentary here. Right? So everybody wears their hair like that, like Giorgio. So
one time, Ed, I do remember this was distinct as well. The intruder, and then the voice. The intruder was normal. The base level was normal, and if the base level just stayed that, I never got up thinking demonic presence. I got up just thinking I had sleep paralysis. I was just always really scared that it would come in. Only one time, I felt like because this must have been whenever I was much younger, one of the first ones, but because I would go sneak into my mom and dad's room because I hated sleeping alone. I was scared to death to sleep in there. So I'd crawl down their steps. You had to go around a corner and go down steps to get in their room. And I'd crawl down and I'd sneak up to the end of their bed. And I would just pull the covers that the big comforter my mom would roll down before they went to sleep at night, the decorative comforter. And I'd pull that decorative comforter down on me and just go to sleep underneath that. That was that has had its own problems, sleeping in my mom and dad's room. But it was better than having the intruder. But then I felt like
Well, you
one
were the
time,
intruder in that case.
yeah, I was. And believe me, they didn't care, and that was horrible.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I felt like I was getting sucked under the bed like to hell, like this big void I was going to. And so that was one of the scariest ones as well. The intruder was the scariest. That was the second scariest. And then the other ones were just very interesting. Why the demons? Why the feeling of the presence? And you always hear people talk about feeling presences, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is something that's really interesting in this whole crypto thing, because again, what does science say about feeling presences? Well, you can actually go, and there's studies that are done that tell you why you can feel whenever somebody's staring at you, because the amount of energy that a person has, like we're all big batteries, and we have a certain amount of battery, and it will have an effect. And so whenever somebody comes in behind you and you can feel a presence coming, that can be scientifically shown, which is interesting, right?
That is interesting. Yep.
And so then you're talking about, well, what about whenever you feel the presences in these? Why don't those qualify? And I think they do. I think sometimes when we feel those presences, they may be there, but in the end, we do. In many, let's see here. I want to hear what you have to say about this part.
Okay.
What do you do? You think we have power over these things as Christians, as those who truly trust in Christ, and at least let's say we're living according to that trust, generally speaking, at least at a base level, we don't have anything that we're toying with. We believe in Christ. We trust in Christ. Do we have power over these things that are coming into our lives?
Yeah, on this particular topic, like sleep paralysis.
Well, yeah, let's start there.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I don't think. I mean, nobody seems to have ever gotten hurt.
Yeah.
By it. So I think we have the protection of Christ more than I would say the power.
Yeah.
Because you're actually powerless at the moment, right? Until now, somehow you snap out of it. Your body snaps out of it, but so do non-believers. So I don't know if we actually have power over it to prevent it.
Well, here's an interesting thing, and I know that we've talked about this a little bit, and we will in the future, about aliens and alien abductions and the power of Christ and how that affects it. I'd love to get that guy that's done the study on it. Yeah. But in the same case I saw with sleep paralysis, whenever you do have the intruder, many, many times, more times than not, the power of the name of Christ and trusting him does get it to go away.
Okay.
Now, of course it gets it to go away in one way, because you say, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, Christ is protecting me, and then you're not going to get scared, so it's going to go away in the fear. And then at least in my case, as long as I really wasn't scared, as long as I really wasn't scared, it kept it at bay.
Right.
And so I would say, at least in most circumstances, if it is a spiritual force that is outside this world, that is, we do have some type of power over it, like Christ.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Generally speaking, I just don't have in this, like nobody that I've heard of has used the name of Christ to stop it.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't either. I mean,
so that's why it's like I don't know.
It's a weird deal, because I always thought, why didn't I just say in Jesus' name, get out of here, or I trust in Jesus, or whatever. Right. I think I was just too young at the point, and maybe that's why they try to get you whenever you're young and get you all screwed up as a kid. That's where you get screwed up one way or another growing up, is these types of things, and maybe that's why they try to get you so scared that you're just out of your mind for the rest of your life and you're just cuckoo.
Right. That could be. Yeah. It could be, or it could be a situation where they feel like they seem to be in complete control. They seem to be in power. Yeah. So probably calling in the name of Christ, but I've just never heard anybody saying that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think we can do that in virtually any situation, especially in some sort of spiritual battle.
Well, here's what I would hate to do. Here's what I'd hate to do, is to tell anybody listening to this, hey, this is all you do. It works every time. And then it doesn't work for you. And then you're in big trouble, right?
Yeah, and I think going further, not that everybody's going to listen to this or future episodes, who knows, right? Yeah. But a blanket statement, we're not trying to solve all this stuff.
Yeah.
This
is
just
recognize it.
Yeah, we're trying to drill into it and get especially get believers to start realizing there's a lot of stuff going on in this world. Yeah. And this stuff is millions of people around the world. These other things that we talk about affect hundreds of thousands or millions of people around the world. So we're not being Rod Steiger or whatever, right? Doing like The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone. These are things that people report on a regular basis that struggle with them. They're not trying to make a lot of money off of it. Neither are we. So
Well, that's
deal
why
with it
Ed,
as a Christian.
that's why Ed, I've been so excited about this podcast, because not because I can't wait to get other people to break free of it. I know I'm in it too, and I know that I
Right.
need to take a look at a lot of this stuff at the face value. And what I'm seeing is whenever I look at some of these things, these claims, the similarity in them, and the cross culture and cross time, if I deny them based upon their irrationality, that's the same exact reason why people deny Christ's resurrection.
Right.
It's not because there's not the
Good point.
evidence.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so I'm like, if I'm using this methodology for one, then the other one has to be employed as well.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that not whenever we look into it, it's like I'm so much more scared and, oh, whoa, I don't know what to do now. It's, wow, this is just a bigger world, and God was right. This
Yep.
is a fight against principalities and powers, and God has other things going on. And in the end, it's really exciting. This whole world of whatever you want to call it, we call it crypto world or crypto theology, but just the stuff of the unexplained and the weird and the what do they call it? High strangeness.
Yeah,
that's a new one. That's a new one I've learned. Like high strangeness.
Yeah, I like that term.
We need to have a high strangeness meter and get it in here. Bill?
There you go. If only we knew a graphic artist that could work on something like that.
No, I am not a graphic artist.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Yeah, I think all the topics that the stuff that we talk about, right? Like just in phone calls, they are real. And as Christians, we need to recognize that these things are that they're really happening. We're not scientists. I'm not sitting here with some big pipe and a long beard explaining all this stuff, because I don't know how it works. I don't know. It's hard to figure out what's spiritual, what's mental, what's just going on in your brains, because the academic world wants to just say it's a chemical, these chemicals, and then the psychologist wants to say it's an underlying fear you have deep down, which your first experience, right? The nuclear attack, that kind of fits that, right? Because that was the fear at the time as a kid. What's the worst thing that could happen back in the 70s and the 80s was Cold War, nuclear weapons, right?
Yeah.
But so there's the scientists have one explanation, psychologists have another explanation, but yet it still keeps happening. They never have a solution; they just have explanations.
Yeah.
And I just say, I think the spiritual attack has as much credence as any psychological opinion.
Well, it'd be fun when we talk about this, especially, because I think the most relevant is when we talk about depression and demon oppression and trying to relate those two, and how we have written off depression, but how recently we kind of figured out, hey, what the scientific community actually doesn't know as much as we thought they did. Like the whole Tom Cruise was right. I don't know if you've seen that, some of the studies that have come out recently, but I remember watching somebody that was started cracking them and said, Tom Cruise, I guess, was right. These things don't work because the medicine doesn't. The medicine is shown not to work.
Well, look what happens, right? So the medical and psychiatric fields, and I'm not bashing them because I'm sure they do a lot of good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But how many people took Prozac because they were depressed and then ended up committing suicide? Well, that did end their depression, right? Unfortunately, ended their life too. So I think what Tom Cruise said, and I shouldn't say this, but I think what he said was right. I think jumping on the couch like a maniac was the wrong way to do it. But if
that was a different one. That was a different interview. You're comparing the two crazy Tom Cruise interviews. There were two of them.
Okay, I only know one. Maybe
he jumped on the couch whenever he was so excited about dating some girl. Remember, and he was like freaking out because he loved her.
Maybe I'm conflating the two. I don't know.
Yeah. Because she was the girl in Batman Begins. She was the first girlfriend of Batman, and then they changed her. But he started dating her.
Yeah. So either way, neither of the approaches were good. But I do know what you're talking about when he was talking about. It wasn't Lindsay Lohan. I can't remember who it was. He was talking about a specific actress.
Yeah.
That was diagnosed and put on drugs and everything. And what he said actually did make sense. It's just he's so
because he's Christian Scientist, and that's kind of so bizarre too.
Well, that hurts. Yeah, I mean that hurts the credibility. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
he can't speak any truth.
No,
And I'm
that's
not a huge Tom Cruise fan either. I think a lot of his movies were great. As a person, he seems like a weirdo.
yeah.
But
I like him.
so,
He has longevity. That's all I can say. He's
yeah,
got good longevity. He still can make money and still can make good movies.
yeah, he does make good movies.
All right,
Sure.
Ed, let me see here. I'm
But if he
looking
ever
at
shows up during sleep paralysis, I'm gonna I won't be happy about that.
Okay, let's see here. I'm looking at my key. Here's my key question. I forgot that I put it down last night. Can we actually feel the presence? Oh, okay, we've already talked about that. Can we feel the presence of another living thing? Which I do think is kind of the key thing. Can you or can you not feel the presence of another living thing? And if science says now, yes, you can, then all of a sudden we've got these other spiritual beings that do come in. And if you can feel the presence, then there is an explanation for sleep paralysis. And so it's very interesting that now we marry our Christian views with all the others, and we're like, we're in the same place. This may be happening.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't. Well, the weird thing was when you were talking about like we're all little batteries, right? Like that's the important question is how does a non-physical entity, how do you feel their presence? And then you go back into all the old ghost hunters, right? Everybody's got their EMF meter, right?
Well, it is. It's EMF, isn't it?
Yeah, but where's it? What's the source of it? Because if it's in your house, if it's in your bedroom, it's there, right? Remember they used to do the air conditioning ducts and all the different, here's, right? And okay, this is the source. This is why this room feels the hair stands up. Yeah. But how's it come and go in your room?
Yeah,
that's where it gets weird.
It is.
So
it is, and you know what? I think that I do in the end. I mean, of course, here's the deal: is for me personally, it is. I know that Christ has battled these people. These evil spiritual forces. I know that he has won. I know that they're trying to do something weird, and I don't know why, because they've already been defeated, but they're still trying to pull us down with them. And I do know that in the end, one way or the other, it's the power of Christ that compels us to be able to overcome these types of things.
Right.
And so one way or the other, we can trust in him, and it stinks to go through it. I know somebody may be watching this that has gone through. I know how bad it stinks, and I know how bad to be out of control. But like Ed said, it can't kill you. Try to keep that in mind. Try to stay calm. There are ways through calmness you can break free from the paralysis itself, but don't struggle too hard. I mean, golly, that's the worst.
Yeah, and I feel for people. I do. I feel for people that go through this, for you, for your family, your kids, and for anybody that's going through something like that, because what a terrifying thing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I can't. I thank God for that. I don't want it. I'm not inviting it in. That's for sure.
Don't wish it upon anybody.
No.
All right, Ed. This has been a good crypto theology, I think. So we'll end it there. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming, Ed. Thank everybody for coming.
Thank you all. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get something out of it. Yell at Michael. Don't yell at me.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks. We're not sure what the topic will be, but we'll announce it. So see you later.